Hey everyone, Basic here. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC dropped a couple days ago, and I wanted to make a video showing you how to beat all the staff ghosts without using any advanced strategies, just clean driving and tight lines. You don't get anything special for it, but practicing to beat the staff ghost is easily the best way to get better at the new tracks quickly. In contrast to my previous staff ghost videos, I'll be using mushrooms just a bit to show you how to use them and where the shortcuts are at, but in general I'm going to avoid it wherever possible. Last thing to point out is that this video is not meant to be a bunch of fully fleshed out basic training videos, so the strats here are not going to be at all optimal. But hopefully they can at least get you started with learning how the tracks work. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the guide starting with Paris Promenade. One thing to point out is that I'm using our usual tryhard build of Waluigi, Bitty Buggy, Azure Rollers, and Paper Glider. This is one of two combos that like 99% of people use online, which is why I'm using it here. But none of the strats require that you use this build in particular, but results may vary depending on what you prefer to use. Moving on to the track, this is a pretty interesting course. There's 3 paths you can choose at the start of laps 1 and 2. Between the left and right paths, I haven't really done much testing, but for the purposes of this video, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference which path you take. The middle path is where you can use your mushroom on all 3 laps. This isn't the only part of the track with split paths though. Right after going off the first glider ramp, the obvious path to take is to just go straight, hitting the orange boost pad and then turning left. But there's a much faster path that you can take if you turn left as soon as you land from the glider. If you want to take this path, then build up a single mini turbo before the pipes, and then start a left drift after passing the first pipe. Pretty much the same story on lap 2, but on lap 3, we actually play the track backwards, so I'll talk to you then. Okay, so for lap 3, like I mentioned, we actually go through the track backwards. You can see that even though we haven't done anything really crazy, we're already ahead of the staff ghost by more than 4 seconds, so a pretty big buffer here. Now in contrast to laps 1 and 2, we actually only have one path to choose from. It should be fairly obvious with the gigantic arrows pointing to the right, but that's the way we need to go. Pass the glider ramp and trick off the ramp ahead of it, and then when you get to the piranha plant section, hang a right. This can be pretty tricky to learn at first because again, we're going backwards, so it kind of comes out of nowhere, but like I said, this path is much faster. Now there is one benefit to taking the other path online, which is that you'll actually get items, so take that into consideration. Anyways, we'll finish up the track by using a mushroom to take the end cut, and after that, I'll see you all in Toad Circuit. This is a pretty straightforward course for the most part. On lap 1, the basic idea is to grab all the coins that you see. On laps 2 and 3, the main difference is that you want to take super tight lines, and just like many of the other circuit courses, make sure to hang out on top of the red and white track barriers as much as possible. You shouldn't need any mushrooms here, but if you do want to use them, then use them to cut the off-road at the very end of the lap. This cut can actually be pretty annoying to learn. Basically, when coming out of the tunnel, the off-road will consist entirely of what we will ironically refer to as grass, and at some point it will become what we'll ironically refer to as sand. Okay, look, I actually like this track a lot more than most people seem to, but let's be real, it looks awful. Anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so once you pass the sand, you'll see a bunch of pipes. You want to use your mushroom to go just to the right of the closest pipe, and then try and hold a hard left as much as possible to build up an ultra mini turbo. If you've got extra mushrooms online, you can use them to cut the grass on the first turn of the lap, but otherwise, save them for the last turn. Only other thing to point out is don't go off the glider ramp. It's slow. That's it for Toad Circuit though. See you all on the mountainside. What a great course. Am I right or am I right? Actually on 200 it's kind of a nightmare, but that's a story for another video. Despite all the twists and turns, there's really not that much to talk about with this course. Just copy what I do, and you should be good to go. One thing to point out is that after the glider section, make sure not to land until after you pass the wooden bridge, unless you want to have your day totally ruined. Another thing is that my coin lines are really awful in this run. You want to grab the first 3 before the cave, 2 or 3 more from the glider, 2 more from the ramps at the end of the lap, and then just grab your last 1 or 2 from the glider on lap 2. Don't grab the coins way on the outside at the end of the lap like I do. Lastly, if you got mushrooms, you can use them to cut the offer at the end of the lap like you can see me do on lap 2. It saves a deceptively large amount of time. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about Choco Mountain. I'm kinda craving some Sbarro right now, so I'm gonna head to the mall and I'll see you guys all there. This is a really hard course to play properly. Basically the story is to just do what I do, but let me explain a couple things. Coins are really hard to come by on this track, so you definitely want to go wide for the first 2 coins after the second escalator, and for the next 2 coins up the second green ramp. Also, when coming off that ramp, make sure not to go up the obvious green ramp in front of you, but veer off to the right into a little sort of hidden room. This will allow you to grab another coin on lap 1, which I actually missed, and it will also let you get an additional trick boost as well as an orange boost ramp, so it ends up being much faster than going up the ramp and off the glider. Another thing to point out is that the green and red escalators operate on global cycles, but what's messed up is that the cycles are actually different in races as opposed to time trials. Haven't messed with this on 150 too much, but it definitely makes a difference on 200. Anyways, the point here is that if the green escalator is on the left, make sure to try and be angled as far to the right as possible so that you can take a tight line around the subsequent right turn. Last thing to mention is that for the mushroom cut, you want to go through this little doorway after the first escalator. You'll see what I'm talking about on lap 3. I should point out that if you do this, it can make hitting the green escalator difficult depending on which side it's on, but on 150, you've got a decent amount of time to improvise if need be, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Last thing to mention is the cars. In versus races, they're located much more centrally than in time trials, so you also need to be aware of that when you try and take these skills online. Anyways, that's it for Coconut Mall. Catch you in Tokyo Blur. One of the most mind-screwy maps in the game outside of Ninja Hideaway in that every lap is totally different. Lap 1 is pretty straightforward, just copy my strats and coin lines. Lap 2 is really weird though. When you get to the thwomp section, your brain is going to want to tell you to start turning right immediately, but you need to avoid that impulse and just go straight instead, unless you want to go on a date with Lakitu. For mushrooms, you can use them at the very start of the run and then to do the cut just before the final turn on laps 1 and 2 like I do in this run. You can actually do that shortcut without using mushrooms in pretty much the same way as you would do the Royal Raceway shortcut, but yeah, not many alternatives there. On lap 3, you can start listening to your brain again and go right immediately at the swamp section. Beware that first left turn on the highway though, it looks like it's going to be a lot tighter than it actually is. Other than that though, pretty easy staff ghost to beat, so see you all in Toad's Turnpike Hellscape Edition. Shroom Ridge is like a Frankenstein's monster of Toad's Turnpike, Neo Bowser City, and a hydrofluoric acid enema. On 150cc it's not so bad really, but there are two places where you're likely going to run face first into the ass end of a car. The first is right before the tunnel section, where there's a really large dip in the road that likes to hide small vehicles, and the second is in the tunnel, which itself is situated right at the top of a large hill. One of the nice things about Shroom Ridge is that unlike Toad's Turnpike, the car pattern is the same online as it is in time trials. That's not much consolation if you get hit by a red shell, but on this course, the smallest of victories is well earned. Even though this course is really difficult, the staff ghost behaves as if it took a wrong exit, so you shouldn't have to worry about too many problems here. For the mushroom spots, there are two actually. You can see them both on lap 2 in this run. The first is before the tunnel where there's a ridiculous glider ramp off to the side that's really easy to miss, and the second is after coming out of the tunnel where you can use your mushroom to go off the track and into a little thermal air vent that takes you clean over the hairpin. Pretty nifty. But yeah, other than that, like I said, it's a really hard course to play optimally, but even this more or less improvised run managed to beat Frank the Ghost by like 15 seconds. So if you try and emulate what I do, you should be good to go. Other than that though, not that much to talk about with this track, so let's go get sky high. Holy hell, do I have a lot to rant about with this course. Fortunately, none of it applies to this particular video, but look forward to me whining about bounce pads for like 30 minutes when I do the basic training video for this track. Anyways, main thing is that if you don't know what you're doing, just don't even bother going off the leaves because one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get flung really high in the air, or else you're going to just fall off the track entirely. Both of these are what speedrunners will refer to as suboptimal strats, so do yourselves a favor and just stick with the main road. Now when it comes to the mushroom bounce pad, what I suggest is to trick off the ramp just before it, and then keep holding down the drift button and left on the joystick so that you can land in a drift instead of trying to trick off it. Truth be told, it is probably faster to trick off of it, but the timing is really weird, and 9 times out of 10, I miss the trick entirely. Other than that, not much to say about Sky Garden. The mushroom that you use on lap 1 is the only real place where you can effectively use a mushroom. If you're racing online and don't have any mushrooms, then you can actually take this shortcut without mushrooms like I do on lap 2. The setup is kind of similar to the first Shroomless shortcut on Mario Circuit if you've watched my basic training video for that course. But that's it for Sky Garden. Let's move on to the final track of the run. Ninja Hideaway is one of the most complex tracks in the entire game, and I'm including the original 48 in there. The math on that is a topic for another video, but suffice it to say that there are a ton of paths that you can potentially take, but there's really only two that matter. Do you want to take the intended mushroom shortcut, and do you want to go up the stairs at the start of the lap so that you can take the top glider path? The problem is that there's a moving platform before the upper glider path, and if it's not in the right position, then you can't take it no matter what you do. And unfortunately, without practice, there's basically no way to predict where it's going to be. This problem is compounded online where getting hit by even one item or getting bumped by another racer can pretty much completely throw off your timing. What you see me do in this run is use my mushroom at the very start of the run to ensure that I make the first cycle, and this is because the top glider path has a ton of coins, which is an opportunity that is just too good to pass up if you're trying to beat the staff ghost. Then on lap 2, I take the bottom path and use the mushroom to cut through the piranha plant cardboard cutouts that act like blue shells for whatever reason. I should point out that if you have a mushroom you can just blast straight through them, but you can also destroy them with projectiles such as shells and boomerangs, making this the only shortcut in the entire game that can be accessed in this way, which is pretty cool. But yeah, the TLDR version is that if you're just trying to beat the staff ghost, take the bottom path and go through the mushroom cut every time, and you should be good to go. And that's it for the DLC staff ghosts. If this video is helpful to you, please don't forget to like the video and leave a comment, since engaging with the video is the best way to help it get spread to other racers like yourself who are looking to improve at the game. I'll be releasing a 200cc version of this video in the next couple of days too, so I hope you're all looking forward to that. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.